Hey guys, I'm Talaska and I'm here from I'm Free Tours. Now we conduct tours of Melbourne, Sydney and the Rocks every single day. But in these COVID-19 times, we can't be walking on the streets of our cities. So instead, us tour guides each week are going to bring you on a tour of our local suburbs. Now this is my suburb, Oakleigh, and I've lived here for about a year and a half now. Originally known as a working class industrial neighbourhood, it's really transformed in the past few decades, and it's now known for its bustling cafes and its large Greek influence. So let's go. Originally, this area was occupied by the Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Many accounts from early settlers and squatters in this area record an active Indigenous presence here in the area of Oakleigh. One account from the 1870s writes of a huge corroboree in this very spot. It's therefore quite fitting that in this very spot we have this Aboriginal monument that was completed in 2010. It's titled Spirit of the Land, and it represents a feather given as a blessing from Bunjil the eagle, and this is an important creation story in the Indigenous culture. So in the early 19th century, Oakleigh was actually named Scotchman's Creek, and that was a large grazing run in the area, and it was named after a lot of the Scottish residents that were residing nearby at the time. In 1853, the land of Oakleigh was first surveyed and the first blocks were sold off shortly after. But where I'm standing right now was perhaps one of the biggest turning points for this little town, because in 1877 this railway station opened up. Now this allowed access all the way down to Gippsland, up to South Yarra, and eventually all the way into the city of Melbourne. And this created a huge population boom for Oakleigh, with the biggest industries being sand mining and brickworks. So by 1890, Oakleigh was becoming a fully functional urban centre. It consisted of a courthouse, a bank, school, 4 churches and 3 hotels. And by 1927, Oakleigh was declared an official city, and it continued to grow substantially in the coming decade. But it's following the Second World War that this city would see its biggest cultural change. During this time, Australia was actively encouraging international immigration to the country under its new Populate or Perish scheme. So this was pretty good timing for people over in Greece, who were seeing the fallout of the World War and also experiencing their own civil war during this time. So during this period, Australia saw the arrival of around 160,000 Greek migrants, most of whom came to Melbourne. These new migrants were mainly sought out for their manual labour, and at the time Oakleigh was an industrial hub. So consequently, around 6.3% of Oakleigh residents were Greek in 1971. Now this grew to about 8% in the 1980s, and today around 12% of Oakleigh residents identify as Greek. So this becomes pretty clear when you head into the centre of town. Right now we're on the Eaton Mall, and this is a hub of Greek restaurants, cafes and souvlaki joints. Now while most of the restaurants are closed during this time, I'm going to take you to a little place that has managed to keep its doors open during this period. Let's go. When Thomas Delopoulos migrated from Greece to Australia, he found that despite an abundance of souvlaki restaurants here in Melbourne, none of them were truly authentic. So his restaurant, Calamera Souvlaki Art, claims to have the first genuine souvlaki here in Australia. That is made with pork gyros and of course with chips inside. So this may just look like an empty car park, but every Sunday morning in non-corona times, this place is the home of the Oakleigh Market. Now this market was started 25 years ago, and it is full of locals selling second-hand clothes, books, fruit and veg and olives by the bucket. But the best thing about this market is that it raises $70,000 a year for the local Rotary Club. Now that goes on to fund local, national and international projects. We now find ourselves in the Oakleigh Pioneer Memorial Park. Now this was an official cemetery from 1859, and it holds the remains of some of the early settlers from the area. But in 1960 it ceased being an official cemetery, and in 1988 it was rededicated as a memorial park to the early pioneers of the area. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Suburb Spotlight. Next week we're going to have Astrid taking you guys through the suburb of Caulfield. But for now, while we can't take you through the streets of Melbourne and Sydney, we hope that you'll join us in being inspired by your own local areas. I'm going to go and finish this. Have a good day.